morning. Today's scripture readings are Luke 20, verses 27 through 38. Some Sadducees, those who say there is no resurrection, came to him and asked him a question. Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, leaving a wife but no children, the man shall marry the widow and raise up the children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first married and died childless. Then the second and the third married her, and so in the same way all 7 died childless. Finally the woman also died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will the woman be? For the 7 had married her. Jesus said to them, those who belong to this age marry and are given in marriage. But those who are considered worthy of a place in that age, in the resurrection from the dead, neither marry nor are given in marriage. Indeed, they cannot die any more, because they are like angels and are children of God, being children of the resurrection. And the fact that the dead are raised, Moses himself showed in the story about the bush, where he speaks of the Lord as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now he is God, not of the dead, but of the living, for to him all of them are alive. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
All Saints' Day. Once a year, we spend some time remembering our friends and family members who have gone on. And today we want to talk a little bit about children of the resurrection. I think it's important, and I've said this before, the church, well, let's not say the church, many, if not most pastors, have a bit of an allergy in terms of talking about death. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to bring it up. Let's just pretend it doesn't exist, even though we know that's not true. The loss of loved ones leaves us with a feeling that something is missing, and I think we need to admit that fact. This is why we celebrate All Saints' Day, if you want to call it a celebration. This is why we do it, because we want to remember and acknowledge that something's missing. It's often more of a sense, this feeling that something's missing. It's often more of a sense that there's a visible reminder that they are now absent. We can't help but seeing that empty seat at the table. We can't ignore that. Maybe you want to move the chair away from the table so that it's not there anymore, but now there's still an open space. Spouses can't help but notice each night that they now sleep alone. Children no longer have that parent to call and talk to when they just need someone to listen to. Even as we get older and have families of our own, there's still something about having a parent. And yet, when that parent is gone, even when we're much older, it's still, there's that feeling, I'm all alone now. Our humanity is marked by death. That's really grim, Tim. Well, sorry. It's true. It's part of the natural cycle. We're born, we live, and then eventually we pass. But it's part of this natural cycle, except when it isn't. We note the tragedies of those who have succumbed to diseases like cancer, diabetes, or even in the last few years, of COVID. One of my dearest friends was a coach I worked with over here at South County Athletic Association. loved by so many, died of COVID in the fall of 20. It was devastating to the club. We mourn when a life is taken in an accident or a senseless act of violence. We cry and are sorrowful for those who have given their lives in the line of duty. There are so many instances where we say they died before their time. Nobody ever says that to somebody who died in their 90s or in their 100s. What do we say? They lived a good old life, full life. It was a wonderful life. Somebody who dies in their 30s or 40s. These are understandably considered to be tragedies. Our call to worship this morning included the psalmist's assurance that God isn't unaware of our condition. Sometimes we feel like that. The writer believed that God is not just aware of our mortality, but cares deeply when death strikes. As Jesus stood at the tomb of Lazarus, Jesus was deeply moved by the crushing sorrow that Martha and Mary felt. Let me read you that. That's in John chapter 11. Listen to this, verse 20. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him while Mary stayed home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Can you imagine? That is an absolute accusation against Jesus. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask him. See, Martha's still kind of hoping for a miracle. She points the finger at him and says, if you'd just been here, this wouldn't have happened. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Completely misunderstanding what Jesus wants to do here. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. That's not really what he asked there, is it? No, that's not at all what he was asking. But she's overwhelmed in grief right now, so she can't even have a theological discussion with Jesus. But then this is when it all kind of breaks down. And see, I imagine, you see earlier in the chapter that he's got this plan. And he said, hey, Lazarus, our friend, is sick, and we're going to wait here. And then word comes back, and Jesus says, Lazarus has fallen asleep. And, his disciples being the disciples, and we're always kind of lamenting at how ridiculous they can be. And say, well, Lord, if he's fallen asleep, that's good, because, you're supposed to sleep when you're sick. No, guys, that's not what I'm talking about. He has died. But I'm glad that it's happened so you can see God's power revealed. So Jesus has a plan that he's going to stick around and let Lazarus die so that he can go and perform a miracle. That all sounds great, doesn't it? It's fabulous. Boy, this will be fun. We're going to see something really cool. Except when not everybody's on board with the plan. Because Jesus walks into this situation confident. He's already told Martha, do you believe on the resurrection of life? Your brother's going to rise again. It's all going to be fine. It's all going to be fine. It's almost like, the Jedi hand trick. It will all be fine. Yes, Lord, it will be fine. Except where Mary is concerned. When she had said this, back to Martha, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, the teacher is calling for you. When she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And there's no, even though whatever you ask, I believe, all you hear in her words are anguish. But not just anguish, my friends. This is anger as well. She's been one of the supporters of Jesus, and he didn't come through. How many tithes and offerings have we paid, Jesus, and you didn't come through for us? If you had just been here, and we sent for you last week to tell you he was sick, where were you? You can raise a little girl. You can heal a woman with an issue of blood. You can open blind eyes. You can help the lame to walk. Could you not come here and help one of your biggest supporters? If you had been here, he wouldn't have died. She says on her knees at his feet. When Jesus saw her, listen to this. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. It's almost as if Jesus is like, I did not figure on it going this way. He is moved by the grief that he is feeling in our human condition. He is moved when he sees the anguish that Mary and Martha are dealing with. And this is how God views us when we are in the middle of our suffering and our sorrow over the loss of loved ones. God is moved. And we see Jesus being moved to tears. And that's why we read in our call to worship, precious in the sight of the Lord are the deaths of his saints. See, I think we can only respond to death out of our own context. This is one reason why sorrow surrounding death is so strong. All we know, friends, all we know is our present condition. 1 minute, they are here with us. The next minute, they are not. And then we are left to carry on with our lives without them. The Sadducees in our text lived in that frame of mind. They didn't believe in a resurrection. In their frame of mind, they saw obedience to Torah was the beginning and the end of the life of the people of God. You were born, you followed Torah for the betterment of your life, and then you died. Now, that's not to say there was no afterlife in their mind. There was. It was called Sheol. It's the term of the grave. It wasn't like our modern ideas about hell. It was just a place where the souls would go and exist. So they didn't deny that part. They just denied that there'd be any resurrection afterwards, that there'd be any coming back. They purposely built the example to challenge any belief in life after death. Wow, okay. So if you're married and you're supposed to, and the woman's married, her husband dies, one of the brothers is supposed to come marry her so that the name can be continued to be carried on. Well, there were 7 of them. So, Jesus, what are we to do about that? Who in the resurrection gets to be the husband? There'd be lots of husbands. That would be weird. But it's possible. It's an interesting scenario that they used to stump Jesus. But this is one of the only times that Jesus mentions resurrection for those other than himself. He says it here to the Sadducees, and he says it in the story that I just read when he's speaking to Martha. Because Jesus was far more interested in how we live into God's kingdom here and now versus what will happen in the distant future. Jesus will also talk a few times about life after death, about what happens when we close our eyes here and open them on the other side, but by and large, he doesn't talk much about it. He talks about walking with God now. It's almost as if he's saying, that stuff takes care of itself. How you live now is really important. And living in freedom now. Resurrection from the dead is a nice thought. It really is. Unless your thought is like the living dead or zombie movies, then it's really not a nice thought. But it's something that happens when Jesus returns, according to the Scriptures. So here we are, 2,000 years since the resurrection, and we're still waiting. And so we kind of view the return of Christ as we have no idea. I'll never forget in the 80s, there was this big push about, the Antichrist is in the world now. The one world government is coming, and the tribulation is set to begin, and the rapture, and oh my, and that was 40 years ago now, and we're thinking, okay, we missed that one. So we kind of view the return of Christ as sometime at the end of the age or something like that. Paul mentions it in both 1 Corinthians and 1 Thessalonians. Listen to what he writes to the church at Corinth. He says, listen, I will tell you a mystery. We will not all die, but we will all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, for the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable. And we will all be changed. For this perishable body must put on imperishability, and this mortal body must put on immortality. Wouldn't that be nice? No more backaches. No more achy knees walking down the stairs. No more surgeries. No more sicknesses. These are wonderful promises. Thessalonians, he writes, but we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about those who have died, so that you may not grieve as others do who have no hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so through Jesus God will bring with him those who have died. For this we declare to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, which is really exemplified today by these candles, isn't it? We who are left will by no means precede those who have died, for the Lord himself, with a cry of command, with the archangel's call, and with the sound of God's trumpet, will descend from heaven, and the dead in Christ will rise first. And we who are alive and who are left will be caught up in the clouds together with them to meet the Lord in the air. And so will we be with the Lord forever. Can you picture that in your mind? What that's going to be like? The Apostle John writes, see what love the Father has given us, that we should be called the children of God. And that is what we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know him. Beloved, we are God's children now. What we will be has not yet been revealed. What we do know is this. When he is revealed, we will be like him, for we will see him as he is. All of these are promises that one day, at the end of the age, when Christ returns, those who have passed on will come back to us. When that happens, who knows? How that happens, who knows? Even Paul said it's a mystery. Don't understand it. And all these people who we've called out names for today, who we miss dearly. But here's the point. These are nice promises. But they are for an age to come, and it doesn't feel very real to us, does it? If we be honest with ourselves. And I think Jesus knew that too. And I think it's one of the reasons why Jesus never really talks about resurrection, other than when he was talking to the Sadducees. But I love this. At the Last Supper, Jesus is with his disciples. And he's already been telling them, look, sufferings are coming. Some of you are going to get persecuted. Some of you are going to be martyred. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to be martyred. But he looks him in the eye and says this, do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. That is a promise I can hang on to. It's hard for me to hang on to a promise of resurrection because it just seems so far off. But this is a beautiful promise. When our time comes, and my friends, it will come. There was an interesting statistic that science came up with just a few years ago. 1 out of every 1 dies. 1 out of 1. Our time will come. The promise here is we don't need to fear. We don't have to look at that through fear. And for those who have passed on, we don't need to fear for them. That's an even more beautiful promise. Just as Jesus came and got them when their time came, Jesus will come and get us when our time comes. So on that day, when I close my eyes, or you close your eyes in this world, and you open them on the other side, there you will see Jesus, reaching out to his hand and saying, "Hey, Phil. Hey, Kurt. Hey, John. Well done. Remember I said I was going to come and get you? Here I am. I'm here to take you home." It's a beautiful promise. Resurrection seems like a far-off thing. But we don't have to fear about what is to come, because Christ is going to come and be with us. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about why we do communion. Because in the old belief among the Hebrew peoples, as I said earlier, they believed in Sheol. Turn that. Can they see that? They can see that. Okay. They believed in the term called Sheol, which was the grave. It was a place of lingering. It was a place where the souls all went. Jesus tells a parable about this, about another person named Lazarus, a parable of Lazarus and the rich man, and how they both go on. But Jesus comes and he establishes a new covenant. And it's one of the reasons why we talk about that Last Supper so much. In John's Gospel, he says, "I have so wanted to eat this meal with you." Which is interesting because it kind of leads us to think, well, has he never had a meal with his disciples? Well, that would be silly. He had meals with his disciples. But this one was different. He sat at a table with his friends. He said, "I've been wanting to have this meal with you because this one's different. This one's special." And he knew he was going to be betrayed. He had already told them that. So that night, he took the bread. He showed it to him, and he gave thanks, and he broke it, and he said, "Take and eat this, all of you. This represents my body, which is broken for you." And then he took the cup. And he said, "Drink from this, all of you. This is my blood, and this represents the new covenant, the new way of doing things. And it is poured out for you for the remission of sins." And then he passed it out to his friends. And so, Lord, it is with gratitude and thankfulness that we ask that you would bless these gifts of bread and juice, that you would make them be for us the body and blood of Christ, that we might be for the world the body of Christ, redeemed by his blood. And he passed it out that night. He gave it to us. And this was the new covenant. This was the promise, a new promise to you, that no more would we be alone. Never again would we need to fear death. Because just 3 days later, even death itself was put under Christ's feet. So the table is set. The bread and the juice are ready. This is not the table of Silverbrook. This is not the table of the Methodist Church. This is the table of the Lord, and all are invited to partake of this table. Come if you've got great faith. You're a saint of old. Come if you don't have any faith. And I don't even know what this is, Tim. That's okay. You are still invited. Will you come, please?